Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Sasha. Today we are talking about my very first official 5-star read of 2025. It's about friggin' time. Oh my gosh. And it just so happens to be one of my book club picks for the year for my book club. So we're going to jump into this conversation review. Gosh, rant, rave, I don't know where this is gonna go. We're diving into it after a quick word from today's sponsor. Hey there friends, it's me, Sasha, and today's sponsor is my Etsy shop, Dreaming of Stars Co. Have you ever wished you could match the vibe of your favorite book to a bookmark? Have you ever started reading a book but wanted to take a break and realized there was nothing close by except the last receipt from your library to use to hold your place? Hey, we're here to listen. We don't judge. Whether it's dark romance, queer, indie, fantasy, sci-fi, nonfiction, we've got bookmark designs just for you. And when I say we, it's really just me, but the we makes it sound, official or something. All my bookmarks are made right here in this very room. By me, myself, Sasha Marie. You can use code WELCOME10 on your first order for a discount. Thank you so much for watching. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. As you saw from the thumbnail and the title, Iron Widow was the You Can Read With Us book club pick for February. This was the first book all of the members voted on, and we just had our book club meeting in person last night. The virtual meeting is happening tonight, so I've met with half of my book club members and I'll meet with the other half later today. So I have some of their thoughts and some of the conversation we had together to discuss with you. And one thing a lot of these members didn't actually know was that this was a young adult novel, and it sort of answered a lot of the questions that they had regarding what was going on, etc., etc. As of filming this, I have not looked up a pronunciation guide for these characters. I might actually try and find a clip and insert it here.
Hello, I am Sharon J. Zhao, the author of Iron Widow, and let me tell you a little bit about the characters in this. So of course we have the protagonist Zetian, there she is right on the cover, and then we have Yizhi, Zetian's childhood friend, and then we have Shiming, the top-billed love interest in the description.
Our main female character, Zetian, that's how I say it in my head. Am I trying to learn Chinese on Duolingo and I'm listening to a lot of Chinese dramas? Yes. Does that mean my pronunciation is still extremely American and bad? It does, because it's been less than a month of me learning Chinese. So our main female character is obviously a female born into a family, and in this sort of society, in this setting, and in this story specifically, women are typically sort of gifted to the government and to the war efforts to become concubine pilots for what I imagined as like really big Transformers or like Pacific Rim Power Rangers styled things, like machines that come to life through the power of the human pilots. It's a yin and a yang situation, so there's the feminine energy, there's the male energy, and their minds and powers combined make this big machine come to life to fight the other machines that are actively, we are told, trying to harm civilization here. The main catch is that almost all of these female concubine pilots die within their very first battle because the male pilot sort of takes so much of their life force into them in order to pilot the machine that it ends up killing them. So our female main character's sister was also killed by one of these male pilots. However, she did present with some like wounds and bruising before her battle, and I don't even remember if she actually went into battle before she mysteriously died. So it was suspected that she was murdered by one of the male pilots, and so our female main character enlists on a mission to kill the man who killed her sister. This story also opens up with a male main character who we learn is extremely wealthy, and they meet in secret in the forest and have been doing so since they were children. There is some mutual attraction there, and He even tries to prevent her from leaving and doing something that kind of puts all of them, him, like puts them both in danger before she ends up actually going into the military encampment or training center, whatever you want to call it. This book, one of the sort of complaints from some of my members was that the prologue just drops you in the middle of a battle. Like you're in the head of a male pilot, which is not totally normal for the rest of the novel. Most of it is from the perspective of our female main character, and you're just dropped inside this battle. You're told sort of about the yin and the yang, you're told sort of about the emotions, the powers, the physical connection, the way that these machines are working. You are just dropped into the middle of it, and that was very affronting to some of our members. I quite enjoyed it because it was very fast paced. It definitely set the tone for the novel. And as the novel continued, we get to see the minds of these male pilots a few other times when our female main character links with their mind in order to power what they call the Hunduns. Again, don't know the pronunciation, but that is what the enemy sort of machines are called. And then they use the scraps of those to build their own fighting machines and weapons. This is an extremely action-packed, fast-paced, emotional, mentally taxing novel. There is not like a single moment of peace. You just don't know peace until this novel is over, and even that ending is a big cliffhanger and doesn't leave you with much peace either. And I think that's something I remember said, like, once they realized it was YA, they were like, YA is pretty good at keeping your attention and just drawing you into the story, and like, here's a battle we're fighting, here's something really physical happening, and then as soon as the battle is over, you go back to like the mental aspect of it all, and there's just like no rest for these characters, and there's really no rest for the reader either. We end up meeting another male pilot who our female main character pairs up with. He is said to be incredibly dangerous, and now that she has completed her mission for her sister and killed this other pilot who she believes murdered her sister, they are sort of like a match made in this story. And they do call it like the one true pair or the one true match because there are some extremely rare female pilots who are strong enough to withstand the male pilots in battle and do not die in every battle. So it's believed that she is one of these female pilots. She's called the Iron Widow because she has actually done what has never been done before, but it obviously has been done before. It's just kept under wraps. And those other Iron Widows are typically killed or sacrificed so that the male pilots don't realize that they are in danger of potential new female pilots. There's a lot of different discussions happening in this novel regarding patriarchy, regarding misogyny, regarding cultural traditions and norms when it comes to like the sons in Chinese culture and history being more important and more revered than the women. The women are kind of seen just as chattel and as a way to produce more men, and not really seen as valuable human beings in their own right. And there was a scene in this book that was incredibly shocking and upsetting, and as it should have been, where it discusses how our female main character had her feet bound when she was a child. And I hadn't even comprehended that that would be part of this story. And it took me completely off guard and by surprise reading about that experience and how it affects everything in her life from that day forward. She can't ever run anywhere. She wobbles when she walks. She even talks about how her footsteps sound differently from the other women who came from other tribes or other communities who did not have their feet bound, and the envy she feels from just like they have normal feet. Their feet sound normal when they walk through the hallway. And it even extends to when she has that mental pairing with her new male pilot. They start sharing memories, not intentionally, it's just a sort of side effect of them pairing up to pilot these machines. She starts having all of his nightmares of his lived experience, and his only recurring sort of nightmare is this never ending pain in his feet. Like every waking minute, he's just in extreme pain in his feet. And that is her reality. And it was kind of just amazing is not the right word, wild is not the right word, satisfactory is maybe a closer word, that someone else who isn't another woman got to experience that sort of pain and the way that women were treated for beauty standards and for all of these other reasons. This story also dealt with a love triangle that is not your typical YA love triangle. This is the way all love triangles should go. This becomes a little poly triangle. I don't even know if that's the right term for it, but that was really fun to explore, and I loved the discussions the two characters had about jealousy and that love is infinite, and that just because you love someone else doesn't mean you love me less, and that is sort of the opening to a poly dynamic and poly relationship in conversation and as a concept. And I thought this book approached it so extremely well. This is the one part where our group was like, why was it all fade to black? Like, as soon as something started happening, it just like stopped immediately. And I was like, well, it's young adult. So the fact that we even get these conversations and it's just like an introduction to the concept, I thought was so, oh my gosh, so well done. And our whole club is for queer, diverse, and disabled readers. I had no idea this book was going to hit all three of those things because it's queer with the love triangle, it's diverse with the cast of characters all being Chinese from all of these different, I don't think tribe is the right word, but different like sects, sects. It's a hard word for me to say, sects of people, because there's like some language barriers between some of them, and that was really interesting too. And then also we have a moment where from this point on for the rest of the story, our main female character uses a wheelchair. So I was like, I did not know that my second book for this club would tick off every box we had with the intention of reading for the club. And I was like patting myself on the back. I was so excited. The more that I kept reading and the more I kept seeing, I was like, oh, this is the best book ever. So that was so exciting and so fun to read about. This book also deals with alcoholism. This book also deals with so much feminine rage. And I told my friend Allie, who I believe got an arc of this book and then told me immediately to go out and buy it, and I did. And I said if I had read this in like 2019, 2020 when I bought it, it wouldn't have hit the same way that it hits in February of 2025. The feminine rage, the undercurrent that is so loud and just like vibrating with intensity throughout this whole novel, it was perfection. It was everything I needed to be reading right now. I think that's why this worked so much, and I've struggled to read literally everything else in January, and this was just such a win for me personally on the feminine rage aspect of things, on the way the relationship and the dynamic evolved, on pretty much all of the decisions she was making. I was like, yes. There was maybe one time towards the end of the novel, the last third, she starts to mentally break down a little bit, and then towards the very end she has like a really big moment where I was like, oh, she might not make this out of it this time. Like things have shifted for her on a fundamental level where before she was so fueled by rage. I'm gonna put this down just because my hand is cramping. She's gonna sit there for the rest of the video. I'm yapping so much that my hand was like, girl, do something else with this. I've already given some spoilers, but this is gonna be like a pretty big spoiler because this is something I also thought was really interesting to talk about. You can see such a distinct character arc throughout this book for multiple characters, but especially our female main character. She sets out with the goal to kill the man who killed her sister. And as soon as she succeeds that goal, she expects to immediately be killed. She did not plan past that moment. She just thinks, I'm going to avenge my sister, and then that's going to be the end of me. I'm going to be killed. My family's going to be killed. That's going to be it for us. So she kills this man and televises it. Everyone knows she did that. And she kind of becomes a celebrity instead, and they don't kill her. And instead, they pair her with someone more dangerous than her. And she lives the rest of her life on this sort of not necessarily borrowed time, but just time she never expected to have. And it kind of makes her snap even more. Like, if you thought murdering your sister's murderer was not like a snapped moment, everything that happens after that is. Because she never expected to get any of this time, and she's just going buck wild from there on out with all of the decisions she's making. However, like I said, towards the latter third of the book, she has a decision to move her family somewhere safer, move them out of the village they've been in. They have pretty bad circumstances, and one could argue nature versus nurture. Like, maybe it's the circumstances that make them abusive. Maybe it's the circumstances that make them awful to be around and treated her like dog shit. Maybe it was just the circumstances, and if they hadn't been in poverty and struggling so much in life, her upbringing could have been better. So, like, while we're all still alive, why don't you put your family somewhere nicer in the city where they'll be safe? She does that, and I was not on board. I was like, she's going soft. I was like, oh no. That was the first clue that things were changing. Then later, we meet up with a new male pilot, and she enters his mind realm. And the first time she enters the mind realm, she almost immediately recognizes what it is and is able to kill the main pilot in his mind realm and take control. The second time, when she gets her partner male pilot, they have a fight, but then they sort of like even out a little bit. So it's like she knew where she was, she knew what was happening, and she was still able to like not die and come out on top. The third time she pairs with a male pilot and she enters his mind realm, she is dying and she needs to be rescued by someone else in the mind realm in order to escape. And that's the first time that had happened throughout the novel, and I love that we got all of those different instances of seeing into these men's minds and how different each one was and the progression of it through the novel, because it also speaks to each man's power and how her power contrasts or sort of connects and emphasizes his. And I thought that was a really fascinating way to create that sort of like character arc as well. Some of the things that me and my group discussed that we were all like, this didn't quite work for me. I was the highest rating out of the group of members who met yesterday. I have no idea what my members rated it for the meeting we're having tonight. They were all at like a 3 or a 3.5, which I think for my group is okay. It's like pretty okay. I don't think a lot of them read fantasy. All of them said they would have not ever picked this book up had we not like voted on it and suggested it for the group. So I think with that in mind, we're doing all right, especially since our first book, over half our members DNF'd. So we're doing okay. Anyway, one of the things that didn't quite work was it felt a little bit rushed at times, or the way that I sort of described it was things kind of felt like they were missing. Like we would sort of jump from place to place really rapidly, and it was like we all just wanted a little bit more. We wanted to sit in scenes a little bit longer. We wanted to explore things a little bit more, and it felt like time would pass really quickly and we wouldn't see that happen. It would just be like, here's the end of one chapter, now it's 2 weeks later and something else is happening. I don't know that 2 weeks is an accurate measure of time for the book, but that's just like my example off the cuff. So that was one of the things that the group as a general, we were like, felt either a little bit rushed or like there weren't enough details and it was really hard to understand what was going on. The other thing the group mentioned, which I personally wasn't having any struggling with, were some of the cultural things. Like, they struggled really hard to imagine these giant machines or whatever they were using to fight the other machines. I didn't really have a hard time with that because I have watched like Transformers and Pacific Rim and Power Rangers and stuff. And I think if you've seen media like that before, or if you've seen anime before, I feel like that's maybe a cultural thing where it was like they really couldn't visualize that because they'd never potentially seen it before. So they didn't have enough details in the beginning to understand what was going on. Whereas I was like, this makes total sense to me. I was locked in. The other thing some of them struggled with was her ultimate decision at the end of the book with what to do with her family. And big spoiler alert, she makes the decision to unalive her family at the end of the book. And some of the members were really shocked by that, but not necessarily in like I don't think that was the right decision for her because her family was awful. Just in like, they really didn't think that's the way that it would have went. And I will say, based on my very limited experience with Chinese dramas, that when an emperor comes into power, it is, from what I've seen so far, pretty common for them to kill off their family. And even in like other books I've read, that when someone comes into power, they kill all of their remaining family so that there's no one to challenge them for the throne except for their heirs personally. You see that in like Game of Thrones, you see that in a ton of other books. So for people who don't read fantasy a lot, I can see that being like shocking. But I was just like, correct decision, because her family is sort of a liability and a way to manipulate her and get her to make certain choices to keep them safe. But if they don't exist, she doesn't have to bow to anyone. She doesn't have to do what anyone else says, because everything she loved is like part of her reign of like, she has herself, she has her pilots, she has the boy from the forest who's really rich. Like, her family she created, and they're gonna be with her at the top of the pyramid wherever they're going together. And like, her family she didn't need as a distraction, and she didn't need to be used against her going forward. I loved this book. I have heard book 2 is divisive, that people either love it or hate it, and I mean like really hate it. So we were discussing, actually, potentially, if we are all still curious in a few months, we might pick up book 2 for the book club. So that's so exciting. Like, I'm just so happy and proud that we picked this book for my book club. If you wanted to join as a virtual member, you can send me a direct message over on Blue Sky, or send me an email, readwithme@sashamarie@gmail.com, and I will tell you all about the club. I do a little tiny vetting process to make sure everyone who's joining is joining with the right intentions and for all the right reasons. Intentions and reasons are pretty much the same thing. I just repeated myself. So if you wanted to become a virtual member, you can always do that. It's 21 and older. We're trying to go back and forth between fantasy one month and romance the next month. If it's romantasy, that still counts, okay? And yeah, That's all I'm gonna say because I'm losing my voice. I've been yapping so long. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Bye!